AJ. That's some good stuff, man. I got it's growing on me. I didn't like it at first, but man, that's some good stuff.
Oh, really? That's so funny. Yeah. I was gonna suggest that you put on a cape and and do your shoulders like this and do your best James Brown imitation.
Oh, what do you think of my t-shirt? Usually I don't wear a t-shirt, but
I wanted you to do this motion because
I was watching James Brown. I forget what I was watching. Something they had James Brown on there, and I was like, I just didn't get it. What am I missing? What am I missing about James Brown?
His energy.
I know he could do the splits when he was 73 years old. That was impressive.
His energy. By the way, I saw him sing "This Is a Man's World" with Pavarotti, and that was like stellar. But
yeah,
stellar. But a reason I said that you should wear a cape and do your James Brown imitation because he was known as the hardest working man in show business, and
I am the hardest working man. I got that.
You are the hardest working man in nutrition,
in healthcare. I'm on a mission, man. I can't lie. I'm on a serious mission.
Well,
I found my purpose. Sometimes people say they want to know what their purpose is. I found my purpose. This is my purpose.
Well, you are gracefully fulfilling your purpose, and welcome everyone to Pharmacist Ben's Bytes, where our topic today we'll be talking about a little known disease called MBFA disease. But
you're going to milk that for all it's worth, aren't you?
Every ounce, and then we're going to hope that it can become more prevalent, and people will talk about this around the dinner table and with their families, and hope that they will change their ways. But Pharmacist Ben, so given this disease, how can we turn around and get more longevity in our lives and live a better and more healthful?
Great question. That's actually the question, right? That's the ultimate question. The longest journey begins with what?
One step.
A single step. You take steps. One step, and then the next step. I hate to wash the dishes. That's one of my things. I have to really get myself in the right frame of mind to wash dishes. I like to cook. I love to cook. But then and I don't mind a few dishes, but the pile after Thanksgiving, you know what I'm talking about, AJ? You see the sink is just filled with pots and pans and plates and sticky stuff. It just looks awful. And you want to leave it there and you don't want to look at it. You want to go to sleep, but you got to wash dishes. But I discovered something a few years ago that I really because I hate to wash dishes, I just kind of worked on it mentally. I discovered something. If you take one fork and wash the fork and put it away, and then you take a pan, and you wash the pan, put it away, and then you take a plate, wash the plate, put it away. If you do things one by one, piece at a time, before you know it, the dishes are done. It's like you got to not be intimidated by the big goal and just work on the process piece by piece. If you have MBFA disease, you didn't just get there. It takes years to get to my body's falling apart. Babies don't have MBFA disease. MBFA disease is if you're a doctor, you're a medicine person, a scientific person, I made a joke about it, but really it's degenerative disease. The body degenerates. And the degenerative process kicks in when we reach a critical mass. Or I shouldn't say that. We notice the degenerative process kicking in when it reaches a critical mass, but it's always occurring under the radar. For most of us, it starts at birth, maybe even before birth, but let's say at birth. When we start eating the wrong food, whether that food is wrong because of our mother's breast milk, because breast milk is not all that it should be for many people, if not most people, or unfortunately, if you're not getting breast milk. And that's really where it starts to go awry. People in their 60s, I'm 65, people our age, 60s, you're a little younger, AJ, it's a little bit better, but people our age, guaranteed you didn't get nourished appropriately unless you had a mom and parents who knew what they were doing, which is rare. You didn't get nourished correctly, and that breakdown process started to occur very young. That breakdown process is cellular, meaning it's the end result of cells that break down. When cells break down, very important happens. The body will protect itself against those dysfunctional or dead cells. And the mechanism the body uses to protect itself is called inflammation. Inflammation is this beaver's dam of fibers and goo and cells that kind of protect the body from dead cells. And if it happens once in a while, that's not a problem because inflammation actually turns on anti-inflammation and you heal. However, for most of us, we are, from the time we're born, we're sending a stream of inflammatory molecules, chemicals, into the body. Now, at first, it's not a big deal because you have the intestine that protects, but eventually the intestine becomes damaged. And once the intestine becomes damaged from all of these inflammatory molecules, stuff starts to leak into the blood. Now you really got a problem. It's one thing if the stuff is staying in the intestine, that's bad enough. But once it leaks into the blood, now you've got all of that inflammatory protective stuff in the blood. Now, I'm going to be a little graphic here.
Uh-oh.
I know. I'm sorry I had to do this, but I want you to picture this. You know, when you throw up, when you vomit, some of that stuff is coming from your stomach, but a lot of it's coming from your intestine. You don't want to see that stuff. That stuff's gross. That stuff's disgusting. You don't want to think about it, see it. When you have a bowel movement, you're eliminating waste from your intestine. You don't want to think about that stuff. You don't want to see that stuff. But that stuff that's being eliminated from your intestine, either from one end or the other, when you have this inflammatory condition in the intestine, guess where that stuff is going?
To the blood.
Yes. What do you think that does? Of course, that causes a major emergency. Now, the body has mechanisms for protecting itself, but that's not a good situation when you have intestinal contents getting into the blood.
Well, maybe you should have called it poop in the blood disease.
Well, I don't want to be graphic. It's not just poop in the blood. And poop is a little bit, I'm just trying to create an image here, but it's more like the intestinal contents. It's the bacteria, it's the food particles, it's the immune cells, it's the inflammatory chemicals like histamines, the stuff the bacteria are making, parts of the bacterial membrane get into the blood. All of this stuff gets into the blood. And remember, the blood is very, very serious business. Blood is not just some fluid. The blood has got all kinds of stuff in it. Proteins and minerals and glucose and oxygen and carbon dioxide and hormones and fats and all kinds of stuff is in the blood. It's a very complicated organ. Cells, white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets, all kinds of stuff is in the blood. And the blood is delivering oxygen and delivering nutrients and delivering or clearing waste. So the blood, and it's generating electrical charges as it circulates. The blood is serious stuff. And now you put waste into it. So first of all, now the blood is going to have to protect itself. How does the blood protect itself, or the body protect itself from the blood? By inflaming.
Oh, okay.
Inflaming. I call it dirty blood. But really, it's inflamed blood. It's blood that is now like a black eye, except it's in your blood. It's got inflammatory factors and immune cells. And one of the body's responses to these inflammatory factors and immune cells is to slow down the blood. And it does this by coagulating it, making it more sticky. And this hypercoagulated, sticky, inflamed blood now impairs oxygen delivery and nutrient delivery and detoxification. Now, fairness, the body has a mechanism for getting rid of that stuff, and its mechanism is to dump it off into the tissues. Now the tissues are toxic. And if you don't know what you're doing, you still got this stream of toxicity, this never-ending flow through the intestines. It doesn't stop. Now, the body can handle a certain amount of this stuff. But eventually, you reach a critical mass. And that's when you say, I was sitting at home minding my own business. watching my favorite TV show, playing with my kids, watching, listening to the radio, just doing nothing. I was fine. And boom, I got Parkinson's disease. Boom, I got arthritis. I was fine yesterday. I got arthritis. What the heck? My stupid body, it just gave me arthritis. As if our body's attacking us. We can even call it a heart attack. I was sitting there doing nothing. I was fine. And my heart attacked me. Out of the middle of nowhere, that heart of mine, it just attacked me. How dare my heart, my gallbladder attacked me. No, it's like these things happen. But remember, one fork at a time. One plate at a time. So what do? The first thing is the food. And I always hesitate to say that, but I can't hesitate to say it because it's so important. It's like, I know there's people out there saying, don't touch my French fries. I was telling the story to Bronny before you went on the call. I have a lot of friends who are, they're going into menopause now. They're perimenopause or going into menopause. And one thing that happens to women, as you may know, AJ, if you have women who are fit in their 50s or 60s that they get hot flashes. And they get night sweats and anxiety. And some of these, they can be pretty miserable. Hot flashes in particular. I have a friend who just like sticks her head in the refrigerator and she puts like popsicle boxes on her head to get rid of the hot flashes because they're so miserable. And what I noticed from my women friends is that hot flashes and night sweats usually come a few hours after a woman does something that she will not stop doing. What you don't know is I don't know if we have any menopausal women on the call, but they'll know. What do 50 and 60 and women, 50-year-old, 60-year-old women who are going through menopause and perimenopause absolutely love?
Ice cream?
Close. You don't know because you're just a dumb guy.
I'm sorry.
You're just a man. What do you know? I wouldn't know either, except I have a lot of friends and patients. This is what women in their 50s and 60s absolutely love. And usually a few hours after, that's when they get their hot flashes. Wine and cheese.
Really?
Love that wine and cheese. I don't know what it is about menopausal and perimenopausal women, but they just love wine and cheese. And if you ever say to a woman, if you want to get rid of hot flashes, you might want to lay off the wine and the cheese. That ain't going to go over at all. Don't you have something else? There's something else I can do.
Another route we can take with this.
Yes, there's something else I can do. And I'm laughing, but that's kind of how we think. It's like, I want to get better, but I like the French fries, and I get it, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but it's just our power. I'm not Mr. Food Guy. I'm absolutely, positively not Mr. Food Guy. There's plenty of food people on the internet and social media telling you how to eat, what you should eat your vegetables, and make sure you don't have any too much red meat and this, that, and the other. I don't want to do that. But as a healthcare professional, when you ask me about MBFA disease, I have to say, and that's where it all starts. And when you think about it, the human body is about 2 million years old, roughly, depending on who you ask and how you track it back. And in the last 150 years, we've completely changed the food supply. So if the human evolution is a clock, a 24-hour clock, the 2 million years, at about 5 seconds to midnight, we completely changed the food supply. So of course we're going to have a problem. Our food is completely different. Even foods you wouldn't think are different, like the meat and the produce, that's still different because the soil's different. And the way we grow our plants are different. So everything's different, not to mention the cereals and the chips and the processed food. It's all different, not to mention the cooked stuff and the fried fats and the carbohydrates and the sugar. It's a disaster for the body. So how do you start? Well, let me just say this real quick. Because remember, one fork at a time. The first thing you do, which anybody can do, is reduce your calorie intake. Anybody can do that. And you start off by fasting, really. If you fast a day, that's great because that gives your body a break. But just reduce your caloric intake. That's all. And you don't have to be 100% on anything. You get to decide. So if you want to eliminate, 50% of the crappy stuff you're eating, keep 50%, you get 50% benefit. If you want to eliminate 60%, you get 60% benefit. You decide. If you want to reduce if you're doing 3,000 calories a day, go to 2,000, go to 2,500. And notice how many calories you're eating. It's not all about calories, but calories represent work. So there's other things too, but calories are a good marker. So if you're at 3,000, and by the way, a hamburger from two guys and French fries and a Coke is right there, almost probably close to 2,000 calories right there, 1,800 calories probably. And that's it. That's just a hamburger and fries and a Coke. So, it doesn't take a lot to hit to 3,000 calories. Probably some of us are eating 5,000 calories a day. So back down a little bit. That's the first thing. Remember, a fork at a time. One fork at a time. One of the best forks you could do is Beyond Tangy Tangerine. I don't want to just get on this. Just get on this. And by the way, for people selling and distributing, just give people this. You don't need to put on 10 products. Put them on this. Watch what happens. They'll come back because this stuff is so amazing. Because it's liquid and it's nutrition. And remember, most people are not getting the nutrients they need anyway, not to mention they've got an inflamed intestine and they're not absorbing. So this is liquid. It goes right to work. Just one little thing. And that's how I look at it. One fork at a time. You were going to say something, AJ. I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
No, actually, I want to hear. So you said 1 is reduced caloric intake, and number 2 is
fast. Number 3, do a food diary and see where your problems are. See where your food problems are. And assume, if you have a degenerative condition, assume this is the case. Assume it. Because it probably is, and you want to start off with a first principle. And there's no real health challenge without dirty blood, and there's no dirty blood without something getting into the intestine, save the injections, which we're not, most people aren't doing that. We're not going to talk about the injections. So you just start off small. Start off slow.
Assume that you have a leaky gut.
Assume it. Assume it.
But you didn't
don't
say
need to
it
test
for the folks, okay?
And if you're not sure, and you can pretty much, it's a good assumption, notice if you feel better when you stop eating. Most people will feel, when they have a chronic condition, will feel better when they stop eating. And that'll tell you that something's getting in that shouldn't be getting in. Something inflammatory is getting in. So you want to simplify. What is the worst disease that smart people suffer from?
Overthinkitis.
Don't overthink. Simplify. Reduce things down to their most basic components. The blood is the most basic component. Inflammation is the most basic mechanism. Leaky gut is the most basic cause. And that's pretty much it. Leaky gut, blood toxicity, inflammation. That's pretty much all disease right there. I can't think of a single disease that does not involve inflammation. And by the way, inflammation is kind of interesting because we hear it all the time, but it doesn't really sit with us what it is. Inflammation is your body's way of protecting itself. So if you have a protective or defensive response, what is the opposite of a defensive response that you want to work with? You like football, you got defense, and you got what? Offense. Offense.
Oh, offensive. Yeah.
You have an offending agent. Something's getting in, like by definition. Now, if there's damage, that can also initiate an inflammatory response, but it starts off with toxicity getting into the bloodstream. And so you start small. Don't overwhelm. And that's true about everything. You ever read that book, Atomic Habits?
I've not read it.
I haven't read it, but I know what it's about. One of the things they say is just do little things and just do them consistently. Just little things. Don't try to eat the whole elephant at once. Eat it a bite at a time. And understand that the body wants to heal. It's designed to heal. We're the descendants of ancestors who survived by healing. So it's built into our genes to heal. That's MBFA disease.
I think you broke some news tonight. Before we go to ancillary questions that
how did I break some news? What did I do?
Well, you mentioned that our food supply changed about 150 years ago, which kind of means that Moses didn't eat fried chicken.
Is that news? Did I break the news?
That is breaking news. Like,
Breaking
everybody,
news.
keep in mind.
Moses did not eat fried chicken.
You
That's
know what? That should
exactly
be
right.
the book title.
No fried chicken for Moses. That's right.
Moses didn't eat KFC. Okay, so along the line of dirty blood, Coach
Yes.
Rod has a question.
Coach Rod, is he there?
Coach Rod is on YouTube, and his question.
Coach Rod, man, Coach Rod is always there.
Of course, he is.
He's always there.
Coach
I love
Rod,
Coach Rod. Thank you, Coach Rod, for being there.
He's called a teammate.
He's a good teammate. Yes, sir.
So,
okay, yes. What's the question?
One of his many questions is, what can a person do about thyroid hormone problems, or TSH?
TSH, the very complex issue, because the thyroid is secondary to a lot of things that are going on in the body. The thyroid is reading the body and adjusting constantly. So you can't really work on the thyroid. It's not possible to work on the thyroid. And that's why, by the way, thyroid medicine fails. And anybody who knows who is hypothyroidism, or hyperthyroidism for that matter, knows it's the drugs they give you don't really do much. They give you a little bit of energy maybe, but that's not how hormones work. So what does the thyroid do? The thyroid is responsible for distributing the main energy hormone in the body. The main energy in the hormone in the body is called thyroid hormone, right? So thyroid makes thyroid hormone that energizes all the cells. So under conditions of thyroid hormone activation, heart cells become more hearty, skin cells become more skinny, brain cells become more brainy. All the cells of the body do what they do more and better under conditions of thyroid hormone. So if you're not making thyroid hormone, you got a problem, right? So what is it that causes thyroid problems? In other words, you can't turn your cells on without thyroid hormone. So what is it that causes thyroid problems? Well, the most common cause of thyroid issues, there's a couple reasons, but the most common cause is called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid. Autoimmune diseases are the end result of blood toxicity that has been dumped off into the tissues. Now, if you ask your doctor what causes autoimmunity, they'll say they don't know. Nobody knows. There's no cause. I'm telling you the cause. The cause is toxicity that gets dumped into the tissue, whether it's the thyroid or the pancreas or the kidneys or the skin or various tissues of the body, the connective tissue. And now the thyroid looks distorted because it's got toxicity. The immune system then starts to attack the thyroid. But where's the problem coming from? Not the thyroid. Where's the problem coming from?
The blood.
The blood. So for hypothyroidism, first of all, you got to work on the digestive system. You got to clean the blood. Secondly, because the thyroid regulates the digestive system, the more hypothyroid you are, the more hypothyroid you're going to be. It's a big circle. Because when your thyroid is suppressed because of the toxicity in the blood from the inflamed intestine, now your intestinal function is going to be further perturbed, which is going to further suppress thyroid function. And you get this, that's where the triangle disease comes from. It just circles around and around. So you can see how are you going to stop the problem? You've got a vicious cycle. You can't stop it medically. You've got to stop at the level of the toxic blood. But there's a second mechanism that's associated with hypothyroidism. It probably overlaps. It's not distinct, but there's another way that it can happen, that it happens. And this is one of the reasons why 90% of hypothyroid patients are women. Hashimoto's and thyroiditis is mainly a female. There are men who get it, but it's mainly a female condition. So what does that tell you? What is the distinguishing biochemical between men and women?
Well,
estrogen.
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 Okay.
Estrogen. So how does this all occur? Estrogen is a rev you up. It revs things up. the body becomes revved up under conditions of elevated estrogen and also adrenal stress and cortisol. Under conditions of constant acceleration, constant activity, constant movement, constant cellular activity, eventually the thyroid will slow down to compensate. And so behind hypothyroidism, you'll often find hyperadrenalism and elevated estrogen. So between the adrenal glands, stress glands, elevated estrogen, particularly toxic estrogen, which is a form of estrogen that is produced when you don't eliminate it out of your bowels, and also from the liver. And Rod's saying this is a male, so we'll get to that in a second here. Eventually, the thyroid will start to slow down to compensate, and that's a cause of hypothyroidism. Estrogen is not being cleared, elevated excess adrenal activity, as well as toxicity from the gut. Now, Rod said this was a male. It's unusual, but it can still happen to men. The same mechanism can happen to men. So how does he deal with it? The first thing you deal with hypothyroidism for men or women, based on everything we said, what do you think you do, AJ? First thing.
Fix the gut. Or eat less.
Fix the intestine. That's part of eating less. Yes. Fix the intestine. First of all, hypothyroidism should be regarded as an intestinal issue. That's the first thing. Secondly, calm the body down. Support adrenal health. The adrenal glands are not only your stress glands, by the way, because they're associated with stress hormone. They're also your anti-inflammatory glands. Cortisol, while it's called stress hormone, is also an anti-inflammatory. It quiets inflammation. So when the body is experiencing a lot of inflammation from where? Toxicity in the blood or anywhere else, but that's the main way. Cortisol will come to the rescue as an anti-inflammatory. Do you ever go to the drugstore and get hydrocortisone cream?
Yep, familiar. Yeah.
What do you think that is?
Yep. Okay.
It's cortisol. It's cortisol, except you use it on the outside of your body. So cortisol is not just for stress, it's also inflammatory. So the two ways you're going to deal with this is the intestine and the adrenal glands. You can't deal with it at the level of the thyroid. So the intestine, obviously, we said all those things. The adrenal glands, if there's any inflammatory issues, those have to be addressed, but that usually is going to be addressed with the digestive system. If there's psychological stressors, that's something that you're going to want to address. And also, interestingly, elevated blood sugar and also hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, will disturb cortisol and adrenal activity. So reducing your sugar intake and hypothyroidism, it's no accident, is associated with metabolic syndrome. So treating yourself like a diabetic. So for your friend Rod, A, work on the intestinal health. B, support blood sugar health. And C, address the adrenal glands. What is that called? What I just said, AJ? Digestive system?
Disease.
Triangle of disease.
Tell them again how to address the adrenal gland as a third point.
Stabilize blood sugar and work on the intestine. Go backwards on the triangle of disease. And then if there's psychological stressors, you got to deal with those too. Because to the body, things that you're thinking about are just as bad as things that are happening in the body. The body doesn't know the difference between your psychological stressors and your physiologic stressors. It just sees them all together. And so we always think of stress, we think of psychological stress, but it's also physiologic stress. Conversely, in addition to working with physiologic stress, you got to address psychological stresses. The most important physiological stressors are coming in through the digestive system and the blood sugar system. Now, over the course of time, inflammation in the joints or in the blood vessels or in the connective tissue, various tissues of the body, that can trigger an adrenal response too. But you got to start somewhere. So start with the digestive system and the blood sugar system. Everybody who has hypothyroidism is going to have some degree of dysglycemia, metabolic syndrome, you may call it, and intestinal problems. Those are the places you want to work. As far as nutrients go, the nutrients that you take for the thyroid, they will help you make thyroid hormone, or they'll help activate thyroid hormone, but they're not going to help you with the thyroid. Do you understand what I'm saying? So iodine is important for activating thyroid hormone, and selenium and sulfur and vitamin A. These are all very important for the production of thyroid hormone. But as long as the thyroid is being damaged or suppressed, the nutrients aren't going to necessarily help. Not that they're not important. Iodine is especially important and deficient in the standard American diet unless you're eating a lot of fish. So iodine is especially important. But really, you want to look at it as digestion, blood sugar, and adrenal glands.
And I'm with you. As far as you can do all the good that you want, but if you don't stop what the problem, the source of the problem is, then you're going to have a problem. So
yes, exactly. Rod asked about herbs for the adrenal glands. Adaptogenic herbs, adaptogenic mushrooms for longevity. That mushroom tea can help, or mushroom coffee, I should say. And then also ashwagandha, theanine. There's nutrients that calm the body down for the adrenal glands. Think calming. Magnesium is very important for the adrenal glands. Vitamin C is very important for the adrenal glands. Zinc is very important for the adrenal glands. So, I don't like necessarily focusing on specific glands because it's all networked. It's all connected. And it's not like the adrenal glands there's a problem with the adrenal glands. It's just that it's responding to what's the biochemical disruptions that are preceding the adrenal glands, the blood sugar system and the digestive system. So it's not, there's herbs for the adrenal. Think adaptogens when you think about adrenal herbs, Rod.
Yeah, he was referring to a particular YGY product, which is the Good Herbs line.
Good Herbs. Okay, yeah. Herbs can help support adrenal health, but really you want to work backwards.
Let me ask you a quick question. What do you think about 3 doses of Tangy Tangerine a day?
It's great. You have as much as you want.
So if you wanted to drink 4 doses of Tangy Tangerine in a day,
10 doses. You can drink it all day long. If you drink too much and you're not used to it, it can pass through you quickly, and some people will bloat if you do it all at once. I put it in water. I always recommend putting it in a water bottle and sipping on it.
Now back to what you said about what you put in your body. I was reading an article today, and they were talking about cognitive decline and how they found that if you eat they didn't hit the mark fully, but they're going to get there in 10, 15 years. They mentioned if you eat a Mediterranean diet, that you will be much less likely to have cognitive decline, and they're reinforcing the fact that there's not a lot of sugars. The foods are all more.
Don't they really have? You know what the Mediterranean diet really has? That's kind of like behind the scenes, so to speak. It's kind of hidden that you don't really notice because it's vegetables and it's seafood, low meat, good quality dairy,
the healthy fat,
olives.
Oil.
Okay. But what do all those have in common?
They're not processed.
The soil. The Mediterranean soil is volcanic soil. It's super, super, super rich in minerals, ionic minerals, stuff that Dr. Wallach talks about. So the Mediterranean diet, it's good to eat that way, but you're not necessarily going to get the benefits if you're not eating it in the Mediterranean. In other words, if you're eating your tomatoes grown in a hothouse in Texas or, wherever you grow tomatoes these days and not in the volcanic soil, you're not going to necessarily get the same benefits. Nonetheless, it's still a good way to eat for sure. And they don't eat a lot of calories. They also have other things. They have good social network. The older people the elderly people live with their kids, and a lot of family life and a lot of we have a loneliness epidemic. They have good familial bonds and societal bonds there. There's a lot of things going on there, but yes, that is true. You want to eat veggies, colors, seafood, low red meat, quality dairy. If you're going to do dairy, I'm not a big fan of dairy myself, but there's good stuff in dairy. Eating Mediterranean wise is a good idea. I agree with that.
So
and fats are especially important, and the Mediterranean diet is really high in good fats. Omega-3 fats from fish and from seafood, and grass-fed dairy. Mediterranean diet is grass-fed, so you're getting a lot of the omega-3s that are important for the brain. So I could definitely see that, but that doesn't really translate to the American diet, the Mediterranean diet here in our country in the United States.
Understood. Where fruits and vegetables are grown will determine the mineral
How
content.
big, of
Because
course, yes,
soil.
and how they're grown.
So, how does a person get rid of toxic heavy metals? What is the
You know what the best way to get rid of toxic heavy metals are? Plant-derived minerals. That's one of the plant-derived minerals' most important benefits that we never talk about, is they help eliminate heavy metals. Also, clays, zeolite can do it. Best is not to even ingest them. Right? Don't put them in the first place.
Well, I mean, I'm not entirely.
Heavy metals are the reason heavy metal. First of all, let's talk about heavy metals. Okay, heavy metals are heavy, and the reason they call them heavy is because they tend, not all of them actually, but most of them tend to be on the higher end of this little rascal right here, the periodic table. And as you go down the periodic table, the atoms get bigger and heavier. And by the way, the word minerals is not correct. And I know we all say it. I say it all the time too. But it really accounts for a lot of misunderstandings in nutrition. And that's one of the reasons why mineral nutrition is the hardest nutrition to understand for anybody, even nutritionists and doctors and dietitians and people who really should know better. It's hard to understand because they're not minerals. They're elements. A mineral, there's no minerals except for the skeletal system, there's no minerals in the body. Do you know this, AJ? There's no minerals.
What minerals are in the skeletal system?
Calcium phosphate, I forget what they call it actually, but they're calcium salts. Those are the minerals in the skeletal system.
So
there's a word for it. I forgot. Apatite. They call it apatite. Hydroxyapatite and apatite. That's the names of it.
So
go ahead.
Itself is not a mineral.
Calcium itself is not a mineral. It's an element. Right. It's an atom.
But the compound.
Calcium, when it binds, it forms calcium with and it binds with sulfur and phosphorus. Basically phosphorus, I think. And it forms this stuff called apatite or hydroxyapatite. And that's the stuff that makes your bones hard. And that's where you have your minerals. But in the blood and in the tissues and in the cells, there's no minerals. They're atoms. They're elements. So we say heavy metals. It's not they're not minerals. They're really just atoms. And the atoms are the ones on the high end of the periodic table, like lead and mercury. And the reason they're so problematic is because they're heavy. They sit and they bind to tissues, and they're hard to eliminate because they're heavy. They're dense. When something's light, it can dissolve in water. It's light. It's airy. It can flow. It can move. Those are not problematic. And the reason why colloidal minerals and ionic minerals are so valuable is because they dissolve in water. Heavy metals don't dissolve. They sink. They're persistent. They accumulate. They say they bioaccumulate. They bioaccumulate in the environment, and they bioaccumulate in the body, particularly in the kidneys. Why? Because as the blood is flowing, the kidney's filtering it. And the liver, which is responsible for detoxification. They can also deposit in the blood vessels, and they can increase the risks of high blood pressure and atherosclerosis and heart disease. And they can interfere with chemical reactions, particularly in the immune system. They cause problems in the nerves, in the nerve tissue. It's because they sink. And they generate oxidative products. They disturb electrical chemistry. Oxidation is about electricity. They disturb electrical chemistry. They can end up damaging DNA and proteins and fats. They're a big problem, heavy metals. And most of the heavy metals that we get come from industrial waste. And because our world is so polluted, and you think it's bad here in India and in China, it's even worse. But communities that live, near industrial waste sites, those are the ones that have the worst problems. But we're all getting it. It comes in the water. It's everywhere. Heavy metals are everywhere. They don't degrade, and they accumulate in the environment, and they accumulate in the body, and they cause problems. It's a big problem. In the body, they create a mess from hormone problems, immune problems, mitochondrial problems, genetic problems. There's just a big problem. It's a big issue. So what do you do? Well, there's a couple things. First of all, don't ingest them if you can avoid it, but they're in our environment. So a couple strategies. Clays can be very helpful. Bentonite clay. Beyond Tangerine, plant-derived minerals. Chelating agents. Chelation magnetically pulls out metals, reacts with metals, magnetically attracts them. And by the way, chelation therapy is a great therapy just to clean the blood for this reason. Sulfur compounds have chelating properties. MSM, for example. Also, there are sulfur groups on certain amino acids, like, for example, NAC, N-acetylcysteine is a chelating agent. Vitamin C is a chelating agent. Fucoid Z is a chelating agent. What else here? Did I say selenium? Selenium is a chelating agent. Using chelating agents or chelating therapy is also a good strategy. You know what else? There's something called modified citrus pectin, which you can use. The Navy uses cilantro. Chlorella, algae can do it. What else am I missing? You can actually get something called EDTA. Excuse me. They'll actually put EDTA in your blood, or you can get oral EDTA to chelate. And then also supporting your detoxification pathways, supporting liver health, upregulating glutathione. Glutathione is the body's master antioxidant, and it's actually composed partially of cysteine. Saunas, sweating can help. And improving bile function, liver function and bile function, and improving kidney clearance of heavy metals to the kidneys by drinking water, by making sure you're hydrated. Those are the best ways. And then, like I say, other minerals. Magnesium, for example, will displace lead. Zinc will displace cadmium. Selenium will displace mercury. So using minerals that displace the heavy metals is also a strategy.
Okay, question. So on the periodic table, is there a section that we would consider the heavy metals?
Well, anything on the periodic table, anything that is like heavier than, say, maybe iron or zinc, but they're not really in the environment a lot. The ones that are in the environment a lot are like cadmium, mercury, lead. Those are the biggies. Arsenic. Those are the biggies. Those are the ones that are in the environment a lot. But yes, anything on the periodic table, theoretically, that's heavy is going to be considered a heavy metal, but they're not really in the environment like the other ones. The other ones are industrial waste products.
What about too much creatine in the kidneys?
That's a sign the kidneys are breaking down, or not breaking down, but they're not functioning. Creatinine clearance is a measurement of kidney function. And kidney disease is very common because the kidneys, if all disease is cell disease, but all cell disease is preceded by dirty blood, what do you think happens to the organ that filters the blood? Right? You can see a problem. Kidneys bear the brunt of the dirty blood because they're filtering the blood, particularly of sugar and heavy metals for that matter.
Okay, so speaking of sugar, I wanted to ask you about a question that came in from a woman that phoned today. She wanted to discuss sugars and alcohols and how much will raise blood sugar. Also, stearic acid, a byproduct and used in the manufacture of many supplements. If can you take two? If you're consuming these supplements,
so let's two separate subjects. So, What was the stearic acid? Was the first one? Was the second one? Was the first one?
Please discuss sugar alcohols and how much
so sugar alcohols
will raise blood sugar.
Sugar alcohols are sugar substitutes for diabetics, and while they don't really raise blood sugar, they have their own effects. And you can tell the sugar alcohols all NOL. OL, like sorbitol, mannitol, xylitol, erythritol. There's a whole bunch of them. And the sugar alcohols are very hygroscopic. Rod says, what to do about creatine? Creatinine.
He was talking about
creatinine or creatine? Creatinine. Now, creatine is different from creatinine. Those are different. So, we'll get to that in a second. So, sugar alcohols absorb water. They're very hygroscopic, and they can cause bloating and digestive problems. That's the big problem with sugar alcohols. Now, xylitol is a sugar alcohol that has some really interesting properties. It can actually strengthen bone tissue, and teeth, and that's kind of interesting for something that's sweet. Xylitol can also be used for ear infections. It has antimicrobial properties. So there's an upside to xylitol. Sugar alcohols, there's an upside in the sense that you don't get calories, but it tastes sweet. So you'll see chocolate that has sorbitol in it, but it can cause a little GI distress, and it causes some severe GI distress for some people, particularly if you have SIBO. And what was the other thing you said? There's another thing.
Second question.
Yeah, the second question.
Okay, well, how does sugar alcohol raise blood sugar? You said
it doesn't raise blood sugar. Sugar alcohol doesn't raise. That's why they use it. It's not sugar. It's a sugar alcohol. Sugar is glucose and also fructose to a certain extent.
Stearic acid.
Stearic acid. Stearic acid is a waxy substance. It's called an acid, but it's really waxy, fatty substance. It's used a lot in skincare. Yes, xylitol is very good for toothpaste. It's used in skincare to give products a creamy kind of quality, sort of white, creamy quality. So it's used in creams and lotions. That's really where it has most of its use. But it's also slippery. So companies will use stearic acid in tablets and also sometimes in capsules because it has a slippery quality and it also has a binding quality. It'll bind things together. So between its binding quality, I think it's more about binding actually now that I think about it. Less slippery, more about binding. Anyway, it's used in the manufacturing process. And so you're ingesting some stearic acid sometimes when you do capsules or tablets. It's really not a big deal. You got bigger fish to fry than the little stearic acid you're getting from a capsule or tablet. There's way more important subjects. It's not toxic. I mean, if you really analyze the stearic acid, it's coming from cows that are fed hormones. So, you could go that route if you want, but it's much ado about nothing. I've heard people say, oh, there's stearic acid or magnesium stearate. By the way, that's another one. Magnesium stearate tends to be a little slipperier than stearic acid. Stearic acid is more for binding. Magnesium stearate is like a derivative of stearic acid. And you'll see that sometimes in capsules and capsules that people will question it. There's way bigger problems than stearic acid or magnesium stearate.
Yeah, I know. I might even let you leave early tonight, but not after 5 more questions. Maya's asking what should she do for eye floaters and myopia?
Yeah, eye floaters are breaking down. Your eye tissue is breaking down, and so once that happens, they're there. What you want to do is you don't want that to happen. The eyeballs are made up of, guess what? Connective tissue. So keeping your connective tissue healthy is very important. Making sure, again, it all boils down to the same stuff. Keeping the toxicity out of the blood, making sure you're using nutrients, particularly connective tissue building nutrients. Hyaluronic acid is important for the eyeballs are actually made up of hyaluronic acid. So when the connective tissue deteriorates, that's what happens. Glycation, sugar can cause it. Toxicity from the intestine can cause it. It's part of MBFA. Myopia is more of a muscle thing. How the eyes focus near and far has to do with muscles pulling. And so when muscles don't do their work, you can't see far. They say nearsightedness, you can't see far. And it has to do with how the muscles are working. And I don't know necessarily, if I had to guess, I would say it's the same thing that causes all other conditions, which is inflammation, which is toxicity. I've never really seen that linked, and it's such a common problem. So I can't really tell you exactly because I don't know for a fact that that's the cause. But knowing what I know about the body generally, that seems to me like that would be the most important cause is inflammation at the level of the muscle. You can do muscle exercises for nearsight and farsightedness. And there are eye exercises that you can do that supposedly help the muscles, improve the muscles in the eyes to improve nearsight and farsightedness. And from what I've read, I can't say definitively because I don't know. From what I've read, they can be effective.
Interesting, though, and I maybe you were mentioning this to make a correlation, but if there's a loss in strength in somewhere near the eye, and then there's a causal floater because there's loose connective tissue. I mean, it just all sounds like a deterioration of connective tissue.
Everything's about the connective tissue. That's the mechanism. The blood is connective tissue. Do you know the blood's connective tissue?
I do because of you know that.
It's all about the connective tissue. Everything's connective tissue driven.
But do me no well, there's no genetically transmitted diseases, Kiki. So is it hereditary? The answer would be no. Ben, what do you think about that?
I didn't hear the question.
The question is is
it hereditary? No. Is what hereditary?
Myopia?
Yeah. No. Hereditary, you don't. No. Hereditary, the passing on of degenerative conditions that follow inflammation is not hereditary. It's mechanic. It's related to just breakdown in the body. You can't say hereditary. The whole hereditary thing, you want to get that out of your head because that's disempowering. Do you have a predisposition because of hereditary? Probably there's predispositions, but that doesn't mean you're going to get it. You don't want to look at it like my mother had diabetes or myopia or whatever it is, so I'm going to have it. Predisposition doesn't mean you're going to get things. So it's not like you have, the way they want you to think about it, which is completely inaccurate, you have a gene for myopia. Your mother gives you that gene, now you have myopia.
I don't even know if I believe in the word predisposition.
There are probably tendencies, I would say. I have a problem with it too. I know what you're saying. But if I had to guess, I'd say there are probably tendencies. But you don't want to look at it that way. You have the power. That's how you want to look at it. In the case of myopia, in the case of floaters, they're inflammatory. They're degradatory. Degradatory. Is that the right word? They're a sign of degradation. The muscles are degrading. Muscle tissues are degrading. The eye tissue is degrading following inflammation. And really, that's how you want to look at it. Let's simplify, reduce, take it down to most basic components: inflammation, dirty blood, digestive health, glycation. How often do I say these things? Do I talk about this? Every single time, every 5 minutes. At least I don't know why anybody wants to hear me talk, man.
We love it. Maya, by the way, email us. I have some things I'd like to tell you about what you mentioned, your question, but there's no way I could say that on YouTube because we would get banned again. So,
did we get banned?
We just got off of a ban.
We just got off of a ban. What did we say? Was it me?
No, it was we played one of the Dr. Wallach shows.
Oh, Dr. Wallach got you in trouble.
It's unfortunate that Doc's like.
What did he? Do you remember what he said? Do you remember what he said? Don't tell me. On now we will get cut off.
I remember what he said that got us banned on YouTube. Yeah. You want me to?
Do you remember
what he said?
No, tell me later. But do you know?
He talked about certain minerals in a certain form and their uses and how you might use them.
Okay, all right, that's enough. You don't need to tell me anymore.
Yeah.
Well, God bless Dr. Wallach.
Yeah.
He's helped a lot of people, and whether he gets cut off or he makes people angry, he's made a huge difference in my life and a lot of other people's lives. All right, AJ and Becca.
Okay, we're going to let you go. Yeah, I know. You've had a long day.
I've had a lot. Yeah. I got a lot to do here still, too. Yeah. So, all right, guys. Nice to see everybody.
Thank you, Pharmacist.
Bye, AJ.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. And we will see you, Pharmacist Ben, on Friday.
Yes, you'll see me on Friday.